This month, officers arrived at Minaj's home around 6 p.m. to investigate a report that Nicki's 3-year-old son was being abused. After examining the toddler, officers determined he was safe and they left, but another call was made in the early morning hours, and around 3 a.m. Minaj and her family were awakened after a fire was reported at her home. Firefighters arrived and found no flames. Swatting is a term used by law enforcement officials used to describe an act of making a false report in order to get a response from police that can involve an armed SWAT.
With Desiree Perez, with other individuals, they've abused her. They've abused of her platform. They've abused of her talent. They've abused of her freedom of speech. They've abused her family. They've attacked her husband. They've attacked her child. And it's sad.
The internet is on fire because of Nicki Minaj. She brought straight up receipts and accused Roc Nation of orchestrating a crazy setup game that targeted musicians. She is not holding back either. She specifically called out Desiree Perez and Jay-Z. Yes, the same woman who became a government informant after being convicted of a crime. However, Nicki is not spouting insults. Rather, she is making connections that directly relate to Roc Nation. She brought up Tory Lanez's punishment, connected them to the Snitch label scandal of rapper 6ix9ine, and even brought up Casanova's RICO case. There is a commonality among all the situations. Someone voiced their opposition to Desiree Perez, and observe what transpired with them. This is where it becomes even more twisted though. Nicki was backed by Desiree Perez's own daughter, who appeared online.
Rapper Nicki Minaj was the apparent target of a swatting call last night at around 7 p.m. The LA County Sheriff's Department received a call claiming an assault with a deadly weapon had occurred at the Grammy winners' Hidden Hills restaurant.
She also made a startling assertion. For no apparent reason, her mother supposedly had her committed to a mental facility. What? What could she be planning against Nicki now that Nicki is revealing receipts and links between federal agencies and Roc Nation, if that is what she did to her own daughter? Additionally, do not act as though this is merely rumors. A screenshot purporting to show Roc Nation and Desiree Perez collaborating with federal authorities to manipulate artists from the shadows through their legal drama. This next section is really unsettling. Nicki's screenshot clearly identifies Desiree Perez as a federal law enforcement confidential informant. The details are as apparent as day, so there is no need to speculate. And here's the thing, it is not from an online rumor or random direct message. The paper was taken directly from a lawsuit that Desiree's own daughter, Derry Hadley, had filed. The court documents reveal that Desiree had her own kid taken away and committed to a mental health facility without any medical explanation. Even police body cam footage of the very moment she was dragged away was shared by Derry. She also claims that her own mother planned the entire affair. But hold on, it gets worse. The cause of this entire bizarre arrangement. The lawsuit claims that Desiree abused her wealth, influence, and position to undermine Florida's Baker Act, which permits law enforcement or mental health professionals to keep someone for up to 72 hours if they seem mentally unstable.
You gotta be working with them. As far as I'm concerned, Roc Nation is run by. You know what I'm saying? Why would people think the government don't run businesses? You don't think by right now that they got a major rapper that's a snitch?
However, Dare was calm, sober, and completely in control. She was not experiencing any kind of collapse. She even provided medical records as evidence. It really hits the ceiling at this point. Dare argues that Jevon's race is the true reason her mother sought the divorce. Yes, you heard correctly. Dare claims that Desiree actually told her, "I am going to bake you, and I will have you committed if you continue to use that N-word." What? Jay-Z trusted this Desiree to lead Roc Nation, right? It is more than just cold. That is awful. Dare did not remain silent after Desiree had her committed. She uploaded her health records directly to X. She also criticized the phony Instagram pages, dubious websites, and bot accounts that propagate false information about her in the caption. Dare explained everything. A hair follicle test that looks back more than 3 months of drug usage history is one of the tests, along with blood and urine screens from 3 different clinics. In addition, I have had clean primary care visits for more than 10 years and have never even had alcohol. Straight facts. What does this have to do with Nicki Minaj then? Yes, it has a deep connection. For years, Nicki has been criticizing Jay-Z and Desiree Perez, but people have dismissed her criticism and labeled her resentful. Do you recall last year's intense back and forth between Nicki and Megan Thee Stallion? Nicki issued a caution as the diss tunes diverted attention. She declared that she was prepared to reveal Desiree's unscrupulous business practices.
prevent me from leaving wrong.
The incident started on March 27th of last year.
So legally, I can't go home.
No.
Why?
Demore Hadley says she was lured to that parking lot by someone posing as a potential client for the landscaping company she runs with her then boyfriend, now husband.
She said her mom didn't just play dirty. She went full-blown cartel with it. Once she told Desiree she wasn't leaving her husband, that's when things got real grimy.
Nicki asserted that Desiree abruptly and without cause dismissed several Roc Nation employees. I go into all the people Desiree supposedly fired for unclear reasons. So many were blindsided and damaged by her. She even hinted at in a song that she intended to release. The worst part is that those individuals were not let go at random. Rumor has it that they were fired simply for being Nicki Minaj fans. And now Desiree's own daughter, is fully supporting Nicki's allegations. She claims that in order to ruin Nicki's career, Roc Nation and her mother have engaged in sinister, twisted activities behind the scenes. Dare even said that Roc Nation did not stop at her in one of her most recent interviews. In addition to supporting Nicki, Dare claimed that Roc Nation and her mother, Desiree Perez, are far more terrible than most people realize and likened her own forced hospitalization to what Nicki has been suffering through. She asserted that this is a complex, perverse, and dangerous issue that goes beyond music industry politics. Nicki snapped at X and fired a warning shot after viewing Dare's lawsuit and interviews. To the PMs who say it was not made clear to your ugly bums, she said, "Never call me a liar and never insinuate either. Page by page claims get you all caught up. When that word is said in relation to me, every single angel that has ever been created battles for me."
Y'all don't know what the we go through at the workplace. You know how many women, I said this on Twitter, get strategically blackballed out of their positions when they're a little too strong, when they're a little too smart. And get told that they're angry black women and they're having a breakdown?
He is the Lord of Vengeance. Take caution. No one who participated in the conspiracy on the other side will escape punishment for their part in this film. Hopefully, it was all worthwhile. Nicki had nothing to conceal. She acknowledged that her husband and her child had been the targets of Roc Nation. She further said that influential people were still attempting to split up her family and separate her husband from his wife and child. But wait, it gets wilder still. In 2023, do you recall when Nicki House was swatted? Several times, in fact. That was not random. She says all of this was a part of the perverse campaign against her by Roc Nation. The first time, someone reported that Nicki was abusing her own child to the police. The LAPD arrived quickly, checked everything, and found nothing. However, they received another phone a few hours later informing them that her house was on fire. Who does that? It seemed as though someone was attempting to break her down, one fictitious emergency at a time. Nicki was struck once more a few weeks after the fictitious fire call. This time, a false report that Nicki had been shot was called in. Police quickly arrived, assuming it was a severe situation. However, there was no crime, no incident, and no shooting, exactly as before.
Oh, you cannot.
Why?
Because you're being bank active.
Body camera video shows the moments Broward deputies encouraged Demore Hadley to get into this pickup truck with people she says she didn't know.
I can't ride with you and you guys take me?
You're gonna be in handcuffs, so dog's not gonna be able to come?
No, I don't want to be in handcuffs.
Okay.
Demore says they took her to a hospital for a mental health evaluation after this doctor signed paperwork saying she was a risk to herself.
What he told me was, we received a call from your family that you tried to OD the night before.
A doctor she says she'd never met before. And according to Demore, it's her own mother who's behind it. In this lawsuit, she claims her mother, Desiree Perez, used unlawful means to have Demore falsely detained under Florida's Baker Act and Marchman Act.
So she's the CEO of Roc Nation, a company that she owns along with Sean Carter, the famous rapper.
It was even verified by the LA Times. A call regarding an incident in Hidden Hills was received by the LA County Sheriff's Department. According to the caller, a black woman was shot by a buddy. It was simply another swatting setup though. A neighbor even supported it to the LA Times, stating that there was undoubtedly police enforcement present. Right now, it is just too clear. This was not a coincidence. This was planned. This was done again. This was done to intimidate Nicki, just as she was bringing Roc Nation into the public eye and implying that something far more sinister was going on behind the scenes. You have to question yourself, is this all part of some evil playbook? When Desiree's own kid claims that her mother in Roc Nation will destroy anyone who does not follow the script, and Nicki begins to get hit with swats one after another while her child is present. Was this a warning from Roc Nation? Because it no longer feels random. This seems intentional.
she has been through some trauma and some abuse with Roc Nation, with Desiree Perez, with other individuals. Not kind of, they've abused her. They've abused of her platform, they've abused of her talent. They've abused of her freedom of speech, they've abused her family, they've attacked her husband, they've attacked her child. And it's sad, it's really.
Remember that Desiree Perez has a very dubious past. We are discussing Nicki and a lady with a criminal record who later turned against her country and became a government informant. Because she spoke up and spoke what others were too afraid to even murmur, she is being singled out. It is possible that Roc Nation is more than just a label. It could be a front for federal activities that target rappers. Desiree is more than simply a CEO, if that is the case. She is the guardian of something far more significant and hazardous. Desiree Perez was heavily exposed in 1994. She was charged with conspiracy to distribute illegal narcotics after being apprehended with 35 kilograms of cocaine. Yes, 35 kilograms.
Roc Nation, my mother Desiree Perez, all these law firms, Reed Smith, they have a lot of money and connections and resources. Really sad, somebody so resourceful, talented, high profile as Nicki Minaj being targeted. It should really scare the American people. It should really scare you guys too, right? Because I'm the daughter, so it's like at this point, if it's happening to me, I think she's really outspoken, and I'm grateful that she's being outspoken on it, because I think she's almost seeing it like, well, it happened to me, it's happening to her. Let me speak up on it. Nobody is safe right now.
She was not only dealing small time, according to court documents the New York Daily News examined. She was a member of a vast trafficking network that extended from Puerto Rico to Florida and New York. Furthermore, she was not going it alone. Juan O.G. Perez, her spouse, was also deeply involved. Does that name sound familiar? It ought to. He is among Jay-Z's closest pals. They have a long history. Actually, Jay and Juan started the 40/40 Club together in the middle of the 1990s. Jay also personally selected Juan to lead Roc Nation Sports years later. Since then, they have remained close, almost like family. Let us return to Desiree's charges though. You would imagine she would be imprisoned for a long period after being discovered in possession of all those bricks, would not you? Nope. She was placed on probation for 5 years.
This month, officers arrived at Minaj's home around 6 p.m. to investigate a report that Nicki's 3-year-old son was being abused. After examining the toddler, officers determined he was safe and they left, but another call was made in the early morning hours, and around 3 a.m. Minaj and her family were awakened after a fire was reported at her home. Firefighters arrived and found no flames. Swatting is a term used by law enforcement officials used to describe an act of making a false report in order to get a response from police that can involve an armed SWAT.
Why? Because she quickly changed her ways, became a government informant, and began wearing a wire to assist the feds in eliminating her own people. According to a 2014 New York Daily News story, the feds praised her snitch work and referred to her as their star mole. According to the same report, she was close to Jay-Z and had a crazy past as a fugitive, a Manhattan club boss with a lengthy criminal record, and a DEA cooperating witness. Do not be fooled by the possibility that she received a presidential pardon later on. She continued to work at the Fed despite this. You do not simply leave once you are in that deep. And today, with connections to the police, music, and power, she sits at the top of Roc Nation. And Nicki is out here claiming that she is still working behind the scenes.
Nicki Minaj was the apparent target of a swatting call last night at around 7 p.m. The LA County Sheriff's Department received a call claiming an assault with a deadly weapon had occurred at the Grammy winner's Hidden Hills residence. The caller claimed somebody had shot at a black female, or had shot a black female adult, and 2 suspects wearing all black were still on the property. But when deputies arrived at Minaj's residence, there was no evidence of any.
Nicki Minaj is no longer holding back. She stated unequivocally that Jay-Z and Desiree Perez are government spies. She claims that Roc Nation is more than simply a gaudy record label. A full-fledged feeding operation is underway. According to her, the label is being used to trap rappers and maintain government surveillance over the whole hip-hop industry. Crazy, huh? So who has already been singled out? Nicki cites Tory Lanez as the most notable example. In December 2022, Tory was found guilty of shooting Megan Thee Stallion. However, a lot of the case did not add up, so people were still giving the trial the side eye. Let us dissect it. It was not even consistent with Tory firing the gun. Gone are the bullet bits that were purportedly removed from Megan's foot. When Detective Stagner stood up in court, he acknowledged that the shards that the doctor who treated her claimed to have removed could not be found. Poof simply vanished. It also becomes more messy. According to several witnesses, the rifle was actually fired by a woman. The entire chain of custody, the evidence management, and the bullet ballistic trajectory were all questioned by Tory's own team. There were several flaws in the case, but this is where it changes. Tory claimed in public that Roc Nation set him up just before he was jailed.
They gave y'all all the facts of the juice of Tory Lanez going to jail and this, that, and the third, and Megan getting arrested and da-da-da-da. 2 days after that, I get a call from Roc Nation that says, yo, we heard you're gonna make a statement about what happened, and it'd be in your best interest if you don't make that.
Following the verdict, Tory's father yelled at the cameras outside the courthouse, accusing Desiree Perez, Jay-Z, and Roc Nation of dealing and exchanging young men's souls. That is a grave charge. Nicki's statement that this is not simply music is therefore a pretext. She may be referring to precisely this. However, Tory was not the only victim. Any musician brave enough to oppose Roc Nation finds themselves embroiled in legal controversy, as Nicki forewarned. Let us discuss 6ix9ine, a rapper. Yes, he was heavily criticized for being the ultimate snitch in his RICO case.
Got some names that I want to call. Alex Spiro, Desiree Perez, and the whole wicked system of Roc Nation, including you, Jay-Z.
Yes. Yes.
You who say you rose from the gutter, but you have traded and bartered the souls of young men. And you're still doing.
They failed to add, however, that he defied Roc Nation by openly criticizing Desiree Perez with Nicki. Then there is Casanova, another Roc Nation affiliated musician who was abruptly charged with federal RICO. The timing seemed quite dubious. Casanova had just begun to criticize Roc Nation's dubious business practices when the feds suddenly showed up at his door a few months later. They claimed that even the way his case was constructed was identical to the strategy Nicki revealed: lock artists into contracts, control their every move, and burn them if they object. This is where things get really crazy.
Rap game don't want y'all to know certain stuff, right? And I'm gonna expose the whole rap game right now because I got facts, right? This is what I do when I come on live. And shout out to the Queen Nicki, she'll be joining in just a few. She's an executive at Roc Nation. She's an executive at Roc Nation. You see her with Meek Mill. You know what I'm saying? She's an executive at Roc Nation. There she goes right here, right? Let's see who Desiree Perez is, right? The story that spooked Dash revealed how Perez, the wife of longtime Jay-Z wingman Juan Perez, became a cooperating witness for the DEA in the 1990s. Again, this is public information. This is public information.
According to Nicki, she is holding a lot more names, and they are not only rappers. We are discussing executives, managers, insiders, judges, and members of the press. We might be witnessing Roc Nation disintegrate before our very eyes if Nicki chooses to reveal everything. Therefore, if you are prepared for more shocking revelations and genuine business secrets, hit the like button, subscribe,